Good evening, and thanks for being here live for the SFL's State of the League address. I'm your Commissioner, Cameron Irvine. All of you are friends of mine here, good friends, most of which I've never gotten to meet in person, and I thank you for being here live to participate in the conversation tonight. I'll start with the positives of our fifth season, turn my attention to the problems that currently face our future, and then discuss that future in more detail with all of you. For those of you that care about sim football, the sim community, the well-being of this great idea we call the SFL, I can assure you that this next half hour will be worth every minute to listen to, and we will have a brief question and answer segment after I'm finished up, giving announcements and sort of saying my shtick, if you will. Our fifth season saw 4 expansion teams make the semifinals, showing the quality of owner we are attracting to the SFL is only getting better, and that over time the quality of play throughout the league will get better because of it. It saw, for the 5th straight season, every game played on our schedule. That's easier said than done, folks. Other all-pro leagues can't say that. Most Madden leagues can't say that. Even most minor league organizations out there with the real helmet pads, baseball bats, and basketballs can't say that. I'm very proud of another season with that achievement. The 5th season saw surprising upsets and ultimately served as not just a transition year for the SFL, but also as a year of survival. A season with an evolving video game landscape that didn't necessarily go in our favor. Joe Montana football has still a lot to prove, as does Axis football, and ultimately what the next gen versions of Madden can do for our creativity. Damon Groh, who's developing Joe Montana, has been slightly more engaged with our vision. Axis developers have sadly not been, despite our request to take a look at what we're up to. Last season, the idea of alternative video game football peaked, and we gained exposure and notoriety from it. As if we needed a reminder, this season proved that consistent new is what is required to keep people engaged over a long period of time. The SFL was founded with 7 members and myself, 6 of which who still own half the league today. Kyle Walsh, Jamie Walsh, Eric Barkley, Ronnie Nickens, Michael Irvine, and Daley Holder are still with us, and we should all be very proud to have made it this far. This league speaks to our constant improvement on an idea that was posted on a backbreaker message board 6 years ago. With that said, there are old faces and there are new faces, and we will only see more new faces get excited about what we are all privileged to be a part of. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. When I first got into this venture, no one, not even family members, told me I could actually be a play-by-play guy someday. That's what I'm known for by most people who know the SFL. It wasn't until the idea really got going that people realized what we had here, and that I realized the unique opportunity this idea would give me, thought maybe I was good at this after all. My focus as the SFL commissioner today is not just how I can get myself noticed through esports commentary, but how I can best position the league for long-term success, regardless of where life takes me. The league needs to be able to do the following. A. Uniquely engage viewers. B. Create original content. C. Provide entertainment for its viewers. And D. Provide quality for its members. There are good and bad grades as a league in these 4 categories. We do not engage viewers enough on a regular basis, and we do not provide a level of quality satisfactory for our owners to keep them constantly engaged. This season, the league went to a 4 games per week schedule, and each team played 8 games over a 12-week period. The numbers show, across the board, from viewership to website traffic, that engagement levels among owners were down, and among fans too. When 1/3 of the league isn't playing in a given week, owners had a tendency to take that week off. That cannot happen to be a success in the future. Viewership showed a Saturday afternoon time slot is poor. Viewership showed that having 1 game a night, 4 nights a week, is not a model that is exciting, especially when that game is a blowout or the teams are out of playoff contention, which happened quickly with an 8-game season in a 12-game league. The numbers don't lie, and those numbers have prompted the number of changes this league expects to see in 2016. Let's not forget the one reason why we show up and do this every week, 4 nights a week, because it's fun, because we care about it, because we love to do it. In order to be a viable league, change must occur always. Being stuck in the ways of the past will get you nowhere in this life. I hope owners will find that these adjustments will not only make the league a better run operation, but will also pump some more fun into the art of being a simulation coach. Instead of having 8 games and 4 byes over a 12-week period, each team will get 12 games and will never be purposely disengaged by the league through byes. Games will air 3 nights a week. The 3 top games on the schedule will get commentary. The rest will be played out live simultaneously on other channels. What owners lose in having not all of their games commentated, they will gain in getting more games, having more time to tweak and adjust their scheme and strategy over the course of the season. Plus, their team will still be shown via highlights on the main game with in-game updates from the SFL studio and will still be actively discussed in the night's conversation. Is it a risk going to a different league model? You bet it is, and I have thought a lot about what this move could mean for the SFL, positively and negatively, but as commissioner, I believe it is necessary to try. Next year, we would be taking a step back, as only 3 of the 4 games would be commentated over a 4-day period, assuming no league expansion, and staying at 12 teams. Step backs are not good, ever. More teams will help this model, the idea of having more to talk about every time we go on the air, even if that means that our viewership numbers go up just slightly, and games that do not have attractive matchups aren't at the forefront of our presentation. These are both good things. If the NFL wanted the Jaguars and Buccaneers to play each other in primetime, they'd make the schedule that way. They never do. Some of you may be asking yourself, how does having more teams and more games help the league become more viable, a league with a small staff already stretched for time? We answer those questions in a few ways. Number 1, building team rosters through the hex editor instead of me spending 30 minutes a game prepping those rosters saves 2 hours a week and saves me time. Number 2, having 1 less game commentated per week is 2 hours off the air and 30 minutes of graphical prep time. That saves me time. Number 3, having uniform codes built in so that they don't have to manually be taken in and out throughout the season saves me time. Having shorter highlight videos, slimmed down, more efficient box scores, and hopefully a lot of helping hands who can contribute to making these operations more painless saves me time. Sure, more games and more teams will ultimately take more time, but it's when and how that time is spent that is important to our future success. A big storyline this season has been the injuries. Coma Kaleka, Freeman Goodspeed, Elliott Snyder, Austin Broadway, Pete Bruschi, a league decimated by injuries like we never have been before. This debate will likely continue in the early part of the offseason, but let me say my piece first and foremost. There are some who want injuries exactly the way they are today. There are some who want injuries completely taken out of the SFL. Common ground is where you will likely find your best solution. When does strategy lose its fun? SFL owners need to ask themselves, do long-term injuries make the games better? Do long-term injuries make the league more competitive? Do long-term injuries make the game more fun? The people have spoken this season. Teams not at full strength were not interesting to watch because of the mismatch. That's not an opinion. That's what the numbers showed, and owners are a big part of that number. Owners can say all they want. They want long-term injuries or quote-unquote realistic injuries in terms of the out expectancy of a player. And that makes the game realistic. But if you're unwilling to sit through the blowout due to those injuries, then the stance is not helpful to league growth. Neither is dropping support of your team and the league because of it. I tip my hat graciously to Thomas Paterniti and Michael Irvine, owners of Minneapolis and Oklahoma City, who chose to stick by their teams through thick and thin, regardless of player status, in order to continue their support of the SFL. That's what a real professional owner would do. The Canadian Football League is struggling with the same issues the SFL is struggling with this year. They also have been slammed with injuries while playing out a 4 games per week schedule on 4 different days. The results haven't been any more favorable. I want to hear from all of you, owners, viewers, everyone who's ever heard of the SFL. That's why I created the fan survey this season. Let me go over the results with you of that survey for the first time today. 44 people responded to that survey. 14 people said they didn't own a team but want a team. 21 said they didn't want to own a team, but almost half of them said they were still diehard fans of the SFL. 27 of the 44 people surveyed say they watch 1 to 3 times a week. Only 9 participants say they watch 4 times a week. 68% surveyed say they watch games in their entirety when they do watch, and that's a good thing. 68% said they watched the highlight videos on YouTube when we were making them through the first 7 weeks of the season. Those will return as more of a weekly show like a SFL Sports Center in 2016. 34% said they keep up with the SFL mainly on Twitter. The league needs to be better in engaging our fans through that medium. Only 4% said YouTube. Again, that number needs to be better. 55% said owning a team would make them more likely to watch games, which shows that continuing to open up our league to as many teams as possible is important. 48% said they would only own an SFL team if it was free, but 37% would spend $10. For those of you out there who don't know, the SFL's new high-quality microphone cost $170. DAC costs $300 per season. Website management costs $150 a year, and the hex editor specifically made for the SFL will cost in the lower triple digits. This isn't an easy operation by any means, and the SFL hopes to initiate a $10 per season entry fee to owners beginning in 2016 to offset at least some of our costs, while offering owners a chance at winning league money back in return for success on the field. 75% said the favorite SFL feature was the play-by-play commentary. Since that survey, we have secured 2 analysts and have made more strides to enhance our commentary through audio upgrades and eventually by having more storylines to discuss through our new schedule model. 55% said that having pregame and postgame content would be their most favorite new feature. A message board to talk SFL and football in general was the second most popular choice. We will continue to explore these options and try to have them instituted this fall. 59% said they would never miss a multiple games per night experience. 75% overall said it would be better than the 1 game per night setup. The league got an experience rating of an 8.86 out of 10. As you can see, we are trying to give people what they want and trying to make our league viable so that owners in the league can continue to have what they want, a league to have a team in. I would also like to hand out player and league awards tonight before I address questions and talk more generally about Season 5. First, the All-SFL second team selections. Quarterback, Rocco Marconi of the Minneapolis Maulers. Running back, David Overstreet of the Louisville Wolfpack. Wide receivers, A.J. Blaylock of the Louisville Wolfpack and Greg Corky of the D.C. Dragons. Tight end, Tiberius Bovine of the Oklahoma City Renegades. Defensive line, Rick O'Reilly, who played defensive tackle for the Louisville Wolfpack. Inside linebacker, Jeb Gatlin, who played for Honolulu. Outside linebacker, Jasper Lennox, a San Francisco Bulldog. Cornerback, Rodney Woods of Orlando. Safety, Carlo Montero of Santa Fe. The first team offense, quarterback, Skeletor P. Funk of Louisville. Running back, Park Heachel of New York. Wide receivers, 3 of them, James Cooley of Minneapolis, Juan Bosco of Santa Fe, and Jordan Jennings of Tallahassee. Defensive line, specifically defensive end, Ebenezer Taylor from Tallahassee earned first-team honors. Inside linebacker Henry Hittner of the Baltimore Crabs. Outside linebacker Bobby Law of the New York Knights. Cornerback June Fierro of the Honolulu Legends. And safety Billy Joe Casper of the Oklahoma City Renegades. The MVP this season is the New York Knights' Park Heachol, not a surprise to many of you. He led the SFL in all-purpose yards, 2,584, rushing yards, 1,910, and rushing touchdowns, 18, all new league season records. He also led the league in yards per carry, 8.1. He Chol joins Joseph Redfeather, Pete Bruschi, Randall Watts, and Rocco Marconi as league MVPs, and we still have yet to have a repeat of an MVP. In summary of Season 5, Dak Stats was a tremendous addition, and while it was pricey, it certainly was effective and helped myself, Greg Morris, Mike Peters, and all of the owners out there with better ability to keep track of their teams, keep track of their players, and keep track of their opponents as well. While XSplit caused us some issues, for the most part, I believe our presentation improved and will only continue to do so as we further develop our multiple games a night model. The Lob Mob, a YouTuber that has a subscriber base of over 22,000, is expected to contribute as a league analyst next year, along with likely Damon Simeon and hopefully a couple of other big names in the football video game space that will make sort of semi-guest appearances or weekly appearances through the SFL network. So we're very excited about that. We are hopeful that Dak Stats will be able to return at the price that we negotiated from this current season, and we'll enter those negotiations in a couple of months. So that is basically, in a nutshell, our thoughts of the SFL through Season 5. I know there's many things that people would like to discuss, and I will sort of take questions now that people have regarding the future or any thoughts that I have regarding anything that occurred in Season 5. Any questions, comments, concerns, and we'll get started with that if you have anything for me. For those of you watching on demand, I will let you know who's speaking through the question process, and we'll try to make it as smooth as possible. And you never know. If there are no questions, that means everyone is fired up and ready to go. Don't forget that the SFL Championship game is Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. Kickoff won't be until about 4:40 Central. T. Paternity asks, how many new teams will there be? Here's where I'm at with the expansion process at the moment. Obviously, we're still taking applications, and we'll continue to do so likely through the end of the month. We hope that by advertising the championship game on Facebook, and when I say advertising, I mean actually spending advertising dollars to get in front of 11 to 28,000 people, according to Facebook, and what we're going to spend on that advertising. We hope that we get some new interest in people signing up and being a part of the league. So we don't want to close it off just yet. But at this time, I feel there are 4 very capable applications. I will likely bring those to owners to approve. I feel like right now there's a big separation between those 4 and others. But from what I've heard, there are still people thinking about jumping into the fold. And so, if people are looking to make that decision, they'll likely need to do so in the next week if they want to have a shot at 2016. That's the long form of your question. The short form is, I expect for us to reach 18 teams, and I expect for us to have 3 divisions of 6. Each division will have your protected rivals. So, for example, Minneapolis and Louisville will play in the same conference, along with 2 teams from the conference they did not play this year and 2 new teams. And all 3 conference setups will look like that. That's what we're anticipating. Ramos Lynn asks, how many more stars for each team, and will they have attributes in some way? I expect, and this is ultimately owner's decision, we will add 1 to 4 stars. Um, what level of stars they are, if owners need to continue to follow some sort of format as far as like the 2-3-5 format we have now, that'll be voted on by ownership. But I do expect that we add stars, and those stars will have attributes. They will count towards the cap. They will have stats kept of them, and along with being able to fill out your entire roster through the hex editor in terms of their name, number, and facial recognition, height, weight, all that stuff. Along with that, um, we'll have a few stars to go around too. T. Paternity asks, are you concerned that splitting into multiple games per night will cut down on the number of viewers of the main game? I think I would be watching my team's game if they were playing. That's a good question. On our new website, which is currently being developed, we plan to have all 3 games on one page with the main chat room on the page. So for those watching on the computer or on the league website, you will be in the main chat and you will be able to see all 3 games. Now, why I think that it's still valuable to watch the main game is because we have highlights that look in and out of the other games that are going on. So, for example, if Minneapolis was on a secondary channel, the main game has not only highlights from the Minneapolis game, the big plays that are being made, and it'll either come in the form of a video or it'll come in the form of a score alert on the screen. But it also has highlights and score alerts from the 3rd game that's going on that night as well. So while watching a secondary game, you may be able to see your team, but you can't necessarily see what else is going on in the league. So what I'm hoping is that owners will likely watch their team perform on mute or with lower volume and still tune into the main game and be able to keep up with what's going on across the entirety of the SFL. There's no real solution to people watching on their phone or watching on whatever, because obviously you can only watch one game or listen to one game. But we're hoping that with what the main game offers people, that will still be by far the attraction, and something that if your team is playing on the secondary network, you'll figure out how to have both up at the same time. T. Paternity says, can we redo protected rivals with many new teams? I I don't have a problem either way. Owners can vote on that. True Shot Caller 1 says kind of Sunday ticket style, and yeah, that's basically what we're going for here. The excitement of the NFL, particularly in the Sunday early afternoon, is that you have all those games going on at one time, and think about the level of engagement that you feel um, when watching the NFL at 12 and getting those updates across the league, or flipping through those games. If you have Sunday ticket, if you're lucky enough to have Sunday ticket. So that's the whole point. We're trying to bring an NFL experience as close as we can get it to the SFL, in hopes that not only helps streamline our game nights, but that it also makes it more entertaining. T. Paternity asks again, what if anything do you plan to do to simplify the off season? I haven't had a ton of discussion on this yet, because ultimately I think that owners will have a lot of good ideas in doing so, because obviously we're going to have to adjust our cap a little bit anyway, because we're going to have new stars or more stars added to the cap. So there's going to be a lot of change in that space. But one idea that has been presented to me um, in terms of free agency and contract negotiations in a way to simplify it is the following that I'll explain here. Um, Basically, the idea, and again, this is just an idea presented to me. This wasn't my creation, and most of the best ideas are not my creation. But I'm in Delotha. I'll get to hex editing in just a minute. But basically, now in the SFL, you can only protect one contract that's expiring, and sometimes you just have no control. You can't save everybody, and people go into free agency that you would have gladly paid money to keep them on your roster. The first idea of simplifying the offseason is that any player whose contract has expired, you would be able to re-sign them at market value before they hit the market. If you have the cap space and if you want to pay that player what that player is demanding, you would have the opportunity to do so, which means that more players would be signed quicker and owners would more easily be able to decipher what in fact they needed to pay these players and not have to, fight for so much in free agency. Sometimes teams have five, free agents out there, and basically that's half of your salary cap. And the off season shouldn't be that stressful. It should cause some level of strategy, but it shouldn't be. You shouldn't feel like your team is going to be absolutely completely different if you don't want it to. If you are willing and like the players that are on your team, if you're willing to keep them around, you would be able to do so. The second part of that is how free agency would work. Now, free agency, you have a 3-day window to make an offer. And at the end of that window, the best offer, according to calculations made solely by me in terms of grading pitches, in terms of looking at personnel on the team and previous records of teams and all of that. There's a lot at stake for me to sort of look at and judge. Basically, we would cut it down to three variables: the tier level in which you are offering the player in free agency, the money per season that you are offering a player in free agency, and the priority in which you place on that player in free agency. For example, if the Minneapolis Maulers needed a corner, a wide receiver, and a quarterback, they would specify that to me when submitting their free agency priority list. And through that free agency priority list, they would rank players accordingly in terms of who they most want and who they least want. Now, that would be easily looked at by me. I can see that Team A has quarterback, Bob Smith as priority number 2. They want him to be a bronze player for $1 million a season. And Team B has priority level 6, wants to pay him a silver and $2 million a season. Even though the priority is less, they win 2 of the 3 categories, and 2 winning categories trumps the higher priority. If you only needed a corner and you listed 6 corners, you wouldn't get 4 corners. Once you got your 1 corner that you desired, all those players would be taken off your board. It's complex on the surface, I know, and anytime you work with free agency stuff, it's going to be complex, especially when I'm just talking about it and there's nothing substantial for you to look at. But the idea would be that each team would submit basically what they want to happen out of free agency, and I would simply look at, well, who are the priorities of this team, and what are they willing to pay these guys, and what star level are they willing to raise this player to? You may be looking to, one team may be looking to sign a player to, um, a gold star deal and the other a bronze star deal, but the bronze star deal is paying the exact same money that the gold star is because they're spending a lot of money just to make sure they have that player because they might not have a spot for a gold. I mean, we've seen that happen plenty of times. I mean, look at the Billy Joe Gatlin thing, for example. It's an idea that's been presented to me. That's the only idea I've heard, and we'll continue to to make efforts to simplify the offseason in every way that we can. Um, I hope that wasn't too confusing. Um, when you're dealing with stuff at the early stages, it sometimes can be. I tried to explain it in the simplest way I could. Amindalotha asks, with hex editing, what are our plans? Basically, the hex editor allows us to do multiple things. It allows us to give more teams star players, elevated players, higher rated players, in other ways to say it. Second thing it does is it allows us to change the styles of players, the styles of quarterbacks, the styles of running backs, how they carry the ball, how they throw the ball, what type of quarterback are they, what type of running back are there. Right now we only have one choice in the matter: power, finesse, balanced, scrambler, pocket passer, balanced. Those type of options we don't have in created players. We will in the hex editor. You will be able to use legend faces for your players, so that when their stats pop up, you can see the face of your player and it not just be a blank screen. You'll be able to, as I mentioned earlier, edit every single player of your roster so that Nate Conway is not the kicker for 4 teams in any given week. That's something that is frustrating to not only me as a commissioner and to our league from a realistic standpoint, but it also is frustrating to our analysts as well. We want to be able to have full rosters, full unique rosters of teams that we can sort of, tell the story of and give further originality to each individual team. Another thing that hexing does it will allow you to have an unlimited amount of uniforms because the uniforms get put into the editor, and I basically have to select which uniform you want to wear that week. It's not a matter of me putting in the uniform codes and me taking out the uniform codes. So the hex editor is going to do all of those things for us, and that's basically what we are looking towards for the hex editor. We're not looking to do anything crazy. We're looking to just help the league be better, be easier to manage, and give teams more originality, personality, and all of that. So that's what we're trying to do with the hex editor, and why we eventually decided that it was time that we utilized its capabilities. MyMaj C asks, are you planning to make a change to the draft? We are planning to make changes to the draft. The expansion draft will come first. The rookie draft will also have a different feel to it, especially because we will be adding more stars, so there will be more rounds to the draft. There has been talk that possibly players will be pre-created, and owners, they will have abilities already attached to them, and owners decide who they want to draft out of the draft pool. That's not official, just something that's been discussed. And also too, having real players sign up through the league. Some have specified to be drafted by a specific team. Some have specified to be drafted as a specific position. And so they will be entered into the pool as well. The rookie draft, expansion draft, franchise announcements, schedule release, website unveiling, free agency discussions, contract negotiation discussions, All of those will be weekly shows in the off season on the SFL network on Twitch, and it won't be like tonight where we have just one screen and you're just listening to me talk. We'll actually have graphics to go along with what we're talking about, and so we plan to make it a more of an experience like you would on a game day, in turning the SFL network sort of into a SFL weekly programming while we're waiting for the regular season to begin. Ramos Lynn says, I would really like for the realism and immersion for players like, let's say, Parky Chol to be on the highest point in his career, um, and then decrease by his 10th season. I don't know if I'm explaining myself. Ramos Lynn, I think you're explaining yourself pretty good. You're talking about regression or progression due to age. And we'll as we enter into a sixth season and you start talking about the realism of players sort of slowing down, we'll begin to discuss those things. But at the same time, because we've had 8-game seasons, technically these guys have only been playing football in the SFL for 3 years, 16 games per year. And so I'm still a little bit a ways from saying that guys are going to be falling off, or getting better as they get older or younger or etc. just because of that time. But I understand where you're going, and especially with a 12-game season, that's going to become a little bit more important. My man C asked when we are starting, and the plan is still to start the week after the Super Bowl. A lot depends upon the documentary. We want to be able to release that at a specific time, but the SFL could start a few weeks earlier, depending upon how efficient we can make the off season. If the off season can become a much more efficient process, then we probably wouldn't. If we feel like we need more than 30 days or so for the off season, in between the winter and summer seasons, then we'll have to potentially start in late January. I know that's a long time. We're going to try to make that as feel like it's going to go by as quick as possible. We don't want to compete with the NFL. We want to have time for Frank to complete the documentary and do a great job on it. And we want to make sure that we're doing all of our new things correctly. We want to make sure that we have tested, to make sure that all of the simultaneous games will work properly, that highlight videos work properly when instituted into broadcasts. We want to do tests in that realm, and we want to make sure that we hit every level of detail. So it'll be a good time off for us. It won't be time off, but a good time from the weekly grind, so to speak. Guys, I'm going to cap it at that. And any further questions, ownership and coaches will discuss in the off season, after the championship game, prior to the expansion teams coming in, to sort of discuss further some of the new stuff that's going to be happening and going on. So I appreciate everyone being here tonight. I appreciate all the questions asked. Hopefully I was able to reassure some minds tonight, and get people excited for what's to come. That's my job, and I take it obviously pretty seriously. So for all those listening on YouTube, thanks for hanging with us, sticking with us through the broadcast, and hopefully you're excited about what the SFL has to offer in 2016 as well. So thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon. We'll see you Sunday for the championship game, DC Santa Fe. It is must-see Twitch television. 4-man commentary crew. Damon, Greg, Mike, and myself are all excited and ready to go for that call. So we'll see you in a few days. Thanks for being here for the State of the League address. Good night, everybody.